fantastic to see you people all here outside the Trades Hall in 2007 before the next federal election. It's about time we let the working people in this state say something to John Howard. And then what we're going to say to John Howard is this: your time is up! Let me hear you again. Your time is up! Friends, the theme of today's rally is don't give Howard another shot. Let's look after our young people's future. The story you're going to hear now is about a young person's struggle under John Howard's IR laws. How an employer exploited a young apprentice, how an employer ripped off a young apprentice. I want you to listen carefully to the next speaker, Paul Bost. Very important that he has the guts to come up here and tell us his story, because we need the public of Australia to understand what these laws do in particular to young people. Welcome, Paul.
How's everyone doing? It's good to see so many faces united right now. So yeah, my name's Paul, I'm 22 years old, and I was a second year carpenter apprentice until my life got put on hold by my employer and these IR laws. He was underpaying me to what the award was for apprentices doing carpentry. He underpaid me for weekend work when no penalties were paid. I was never paid allowances and had to work weekends to catch up on hours lost during the week due to extreme weather conditions. I started to question my trade school teacher and field officers about my work conditions when they suggested that I should ring Wageline and find out exactly what the award stated and then approach my boss. When I rang Wageline and they told me my details, I soon found out that I was being ripped off and exploited as an apprentice, and that I should approach my boss with this problem. A week later, I approached my boss, and to my surprise, he treated it as a joke, laughing in my face. A few days passed by, then my boss approached me with an AWA to abolish my penalty rates and allowances. He said if I didn't sign it, that he would close down his business and that I would be out of a job. So then I replied with telling him that he could stick it right up his arse. So to every apprentice here today, just be aware of what the award you're on and don't be afraid to ask or to ring Wageline with those questions you have. And don't back down, just be aware. Thank you.
What do you reckon is the worst aspect of the IR laws? What's the worst experience you reckon people are having?
Just to take away those penalties that you need, you know. I was living out at home and just struggling, just scraping through on, you know, what I was getting as a second year apprentice, and yeah, well, I was finding it hard as it was, and then he was going to abolish these penalty rates that he wasn't even paying me that I was supposed to be getting. So.
Yeah. And did you feel like you had the ability to stand up for yourself in that situation?
Well, I got to a point where I had to. Like, I knew that I was being exploited, and I knew what was right and what was wrong, and yeah, I wasn't going to back down from that.
Yeah. The Labor Party's announced some alternative industrial relations legislation that they'd enact if they do win the coming election. What are the positive aspects of that legislation, and what about it concerns you?
Well, primarily the biggest advantage in that legislation from a union perspective is the fact that we are going to continue with union workplace agreements, not these Australian workplace agreements, but union collective bargaining. And in that will go all the issues like how to deal with apprentices, the rates of pay for apprentices, all that sort of stuff, which traditionally has been looked after by the award, but in the last 11 years the award has been broken back to very little, and that means it's been very hard to protect people. And when you add the alternative escape route that bosses have to get out of the award, even though they're very minimal rates, they have the escape route of the AWA. We're going to have union agreements under a Labor government, and that's extremely important.
Is there anything about the Labor policy that you find worrying?
Well,
Or you're not thinking about that at the moment, just trying to get Howard out?
Well, it might be a case of shut your eyes, hold your nose and take the medicine, but I think it's going to be a lot better than Howard.
Yeah.
We've got to sit down, obviously, after the election of the Labor government, we're going to have to sit down and negotiate a whole new deal. And that's what the Labor Party seems to be indicating. I guess we'll have to put them to the test after we get there.
See how we go. All right.
I've heard of many apprentices that have been hurt by these laws, the vulnerable, people who are too frightened to speak up.
Look, I think that the only way that we're going to make a future Labor government do anything, even vaguely positive, even work choices light, is if they continue to see that, lots of different unions, and not just, obviously not just the sort of the boys in boiler suits, but unions like mine are prepared to actually take some action.
Yeah.
Real action. Lots of kids that I teach talk about how they're being either pushed into AWAs or experiencing, really severe conditions at work, where they're, rostered onto 0 hours if they make any fuss with the boss and so on.
Yeah. What Howard's done is disgusting. And I think he's used his career as a lawyer and going into politics to downgrade the wages and the conditions of all the workers.
In the last 20 years, there has been a move by parties of all political persuasions to take trade unionism away from social actors and make it criminal activity. We now see that if you go on strike outside certain periods, that's illegal. What a nonsense. The United Nations has a covenant that says you have the right to withdraw your labour. If you don't have the right to withdraw your labour, you're a slave, and I'm no slave, and that describes all the people today.
Well, I think they are worried that we're still in the streets. I think they would have thought we'd got the sticks by now, but we haven't. A few weeks out from a federal election being announced, and we've still got people in the street willing to express their views as strongly as they have today. It's a very good result for the trade union movement.
And how big do you think industrial relations and work choices is going to be once the election campaign starts?
I still think it'll be the biggest, if not in the top 2 or 3 issues, and I think that is because of the trade union campaign over the last 3 years.
The Rights at Work campaign's been running against these industrial relations laws for about 2 years now. Do you think it's been a successful campaign?
Yes, it has. It was started by the ACTU early in 2005. Once Howard let us know that he was going to do something with the control of the Senate that he didn't expect to get. So when we knew that, we started mobilising. We've had at least 2 or 3 mobilisations a year for the last 2.5 years.
Yeah. Now, we know that all hands are on deck to get Howard out of the next election. Assuming that Labor were to come in, what kind of work do you think would be in front of the trade unions there under a Rudd-led government? Do you see any possible problems with the Fair Work Australia legislation?
Yes, I do to a certain extent. I actually understand that there's a proposal at the ACTU executive to continue the campaigns levy, so that we might have to campaign in the future about your rights at work, regardless of who wins the election. My position is I'd rather negotiate with Rudd and Gillard than Howard and Hockey, but that doesn't mean that all the concerns of the trade union movement, an independent trade union movement which we are, is not resolved simply by an election result.
Yeah. And 20 years from now, what do the unions in Australia look like? What are they doing?
20 years from now? Oh, that's a hard question. I think they'll be radically different from what they are now, because I started in the union movement 30 years ago, and the union movement today is far different from what it was 30 years ago. But unions will adapt. Unions will adapt to the circumstances to represent the working people they look after.
Work hard until you drop it, or we'll get some other tool in here instead. We got this new legislation. What do we want? Howard out! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Howard out! When do we want it? Now! Louder! What do we want? Howard out! When do we want it? Now! What do we want? Howard out! When do we want it? Now! Well done, and thank you. Thanks everybody, as I said, for being here. Now's the time to go hard work in our communities and make sure that we deliver those votes that are going to change the government.